Weight restoration from an eating disorder can feel extremely unraveling, both physically and emotionally. Today, we're going to chat a little bit about what to expect in weight restoring from an eating disorder, how to mitigate some of those physiological symptoms that might come up as we are increasing our energy, and some tools to help reduce some of the stress and anxiety that can come about with weight restoration. My name is Sheena, and I am a registered dietitian specializing in the care of persons with eating disorders. So let's dig into it. When we are weight restoring from an eating disorder, the goal is to increase our energy intake to meet the needs of increasing our body weight to a point where it is resuming its full metabolic and physical functions. What this means is that the first thing that we're going to need to do as we weight restore from an eating disorder is increase our energy intake. This can feel terrifying if you are a person with an eating disorder. It often involves an eating disorder recovery meal plan that is carefully tailored by an eating disorder registered dietitian. If you want to learn more about eating disorder recovery meal plans, definitely check out the link above. An eating disorder recovery meal plan is often critical for a person with an eating disorder because your eating disorder is not likely going to allow you to increase your energy intake without a specialized prescription from a healthcare team. It's going to convince you that you actually only need slightly more calories than your current intake, or a calorie prescription that fits the rules of your eating disorder. So, for example, still maintaining those off limits foods during our eating disorder recovery. So, seeking out the support of a qualified healthcare team is critical. We may also need the support of family or friends that can act as meal support guidance as we are having our meals and snacks to help facilitate those normal mealtime behaviors. So we need to increase our energy intake. The goal of weight restoration is typically about 1 to 2 pounds per week of weight restoration. That can feel like a lot if you're a person that is experiencing a very loud eating disorder voice that is telling you that in order to recover, your body needs to not change at all. But unfortunately, for most individuals, recovering from an eating disorder is going to involve weight restoration. Now, as we're weight restoring, there are lots of physical changes that are going to be happening in the body. The body is learning to use its digestive muscles again. These things have been put to rest as our intake has often been very low or compromised with other eating disorder behaviors such as excessive exercise, laxative abuse, or purging. So our muscles are again learning how to behave in an appropriate manner to help facilitate normal metabolism. This unfortunately can come with a lot of GI distress. Our body might be experiencing what is called gastroparesis, where we are just not moving the food through the colon in the way that is normally meant to be moved through the body. And this can cause lots of bloating, GI discomfort, constipation, and other GI issues. This can make you feel like you'll want to stop with the weight restoration process altogether because honestly, it just feels like shit. You are not going to feel good as you are recovering from an eating disorder. And I'm sorry, I wish that I could take that away from you, but it is just part of the process. Feeling awful after a meal and snack does not mean that you are doing it wrong in recovery. In fact, quite the opposite. But there are some things that we can help do to mitigate some of these really horrific GI symptoms that we might be having in our weight restoration from an eating disorder. So the first thing that I would encourage you to do is practice normal stooling habits. And this might not even mean that you are expecting a bowel movement. So, for example, it could mean just sitting on the toilet at the same time each day and practicing what it might be like to have the experience of a bowel movement. You might also do things like use a squatty potty or a stool in order to elevate your legs and get your body in the position that is going to be most optimal for having a bowel movement. And this gets the body psychologically prepared for what the experience is going to be like to have a bowel movement. And when that bowel movement finally comes on a regular basis, it gets our body in the routine to continue that. Other things that we might do to help with some of the GI distress of weight restoration include using a heating pad on our belly. There's going to be lots of GI distress here, and having some heat on the belly can really help to alleviate some of that. Things that we might do as well include trying to shift some of those calories into liquid calories, which can go down a little bit smoother in the body and make you feel less bloated and less GI distress and pain. Know that bloating is totally normal as part of the weight restoration process. While it can feel unraveling and we can feel completely out of place in our body, this is what it means to weight restore and to recover. We might experience additional bloating if we have had a history of things like purging or abusing laxatives. If you're weight restoring and you have had behaviors such as purging or laxative abuse, you might experience things like edema or shifts in your electrolytes. And you should really be working with your healthcare team to help to mitigate things like edema and those shifts in electrolytes, which can be very dangerous. When you're weight restoring and eating disorder recovery, unfortunately, your hunger and fullness cues just cannot be trusted. And that is why I emphasize having that eating disorder recovery meal plan as your safety net to make sure you're getting in enough. You're going to probably feel very satiated very early on into the meal because, as we'd mentioned before, those GI muscles are just not working in the way that they should be, which can cause that really early satiety. And it's incredibly critical that you push past that early satiety and help your body to begin to recognize what normal meals and snacks should look like. The opposite thing can also happen. We can start to experience extreme hunger as we're weight restoring from an eating disorder. And it's very important that you honor this hunger. Many individuals that are weight restoring might feel completely out of control and like they've gone too far in recovery if they're experiencing extreme hunger. However, it's quite the opposite. If you're experiencing extreme hunger in your weight restoration, that's a very good thing. That is your body relearning those cues that it needs to help it fully restore the functions of all of the organs that have been compromised during the eating disorder. So I highly encourage that you honor that extreme hunger to the fullest extent in your eating disorder recovery and weight restoration process. It will also help the weight restoration go a little bit faster and help to mitigate some of those safety concerns as we weight restore that come with a malnourished body. As you're weight restoring, you might notice that you have an intense desire to body check. So this might mean you might find yourself frequently looking in mirrors, pinching your skin, changing clothes frequently, or finding the urgency to weigh yourself. As much as possible, I encourage you to try to decrease these behaviors, work through these with a mental health counselor that is qualified to work with individuals with eating disorder, and potentially track some of these behaviors in order to see when they're happening and how you might choose an alternative behavior that is more constructive to your recovery process. Your eating disorder weight recovery is likely going to come with a lot of emotional turmoil. And oftentimes, this is just unfortunately part of the process. Your eating disorder is fighting to survive. And that is why it is so important that during weight restoration, you have a qualified mental health provider in order to help you work through some of these very intense emotions that are going to come up during weight restoration.